Hey everybody, as advocates, we often get asked, how will we pay for it? How will we pay canceling rent? How will we pay for having proper ventilation in our public schools? How will we pay for healthcare for all? Here in the U.S., 42% of cancer patients go bankrupt within 2 years. 62% of all bankruptcies are due to medical debt. 70% of those are people with insurance. Under the current for-profit systems, we pay for it in gravestones, we pay for it in anxiety, in rationed insulin, in piles of pulled teeth. We pay for it with fucking GoFundMe. We pay for it by refusing a 10-cent raise so we don't get kicked off of life-saving Medicaid. We pay for it by letting our bodies deteriorate so that we can pay rent instead. These are the disastrous consequences of continual disinvestment in public health. Austerity measures lead to body bags, outnumbering PPE, beds, and staff during a pandemic. Savings in the executive budget means closure of critical programs and hospitals, skyrocketing mental illness and death, and especially in our BIPOC and most vulnerable communities. Meanwhile, health insurance companies post record profits, and New York billionaires get richer.
That ain't right!
We invest in our New York Act and the New York Health Act. Both create structures to redistribute wealth more equitably instead of being extracted from our most vulnerable and marginalized communities, just to line the pockets of corporations and profiteers. We can eliminate profiteers and redirect funds already in existence to people's needs instead of profiteers, raising revenues to invest in dynamic public health infrastructures, as many partners here have spoken about today. These all strengthen our path to guaranteed universal health care like the New York Health Act, so we can survive past trauma, COVID trauma, and the long-term trauma already surfacing from COVID. We can respond to mental health crises or homelessness or addictions with care instead of brutality, punishment, and penalization. We can have more counselors, social workers, and nurses in schools instead of cops. A historic legacy is on the table, that we responded to this fucking public health crisis by making healthcare a human right. We are facing the same enemy. The same profiteers making us sick, denying us care, and taking our land. That is why week after week we have seen right here and all across the state, housing advocates, education advocates, transit advocates, artists, and more in support of the Invest in Our New York Act. We know that we have been made vulnerable to these crises through intentional and equitable distributions of protection and support. We will no longer be pitted against each other, fighting for fucking crumbs. We know we can have the whole fucking pie, we can dismantle this kitchen, and build a new one that meets the needs of the people.